Can you hear me? Just show me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Thanks, Lairib. Thanks, Kirtika. Okay, so we'll start, all right, because we have a lot to complete today. All right, I think people are coming in, but we'll have to start because it's already quite late to start now. Okay, now I was any which ways we were discussing Aristotle yesterday. During Aristotle, I told you why his views were the way they were. He's a conservative thinker and he's a person who believes in moderation. So everything has to be golden mean is the golden rule. Everything in the middle part, the moderate part, never go on to the extremes of everything. So how does that come into being when he talks about the state? All right, that comes in when he says, okay, listen, let's keep slavery. All right, women are important, let's give them education, but let's not involve them in the political processes. All right, so he's very conservative. The way things are, let them be. Wherever there is a problem, only remedy it. All right, so that's why we consider him to be quite conservative. Apart from that, he's also called as the father of political science because, like I told you, he studied 158 constitutions. And you saw the amount of theories he's given, right? We spoke about rule of law, that is the theory of law. We spoke about theory of slavery, theory of property, wherein he analyzed everything and came to the conclusion that individual ownership, common use is the best way to use the property. Then he speaks about slavery, he's speaking about citizenship, who is supposed to be citizens, who are not supposed to be citizens, slavery, whether it is required or no. He says yes, because it was any which way a part of the Greek city states. So he's not of a view of removing slavery. He is justifying it. He gives us justifications. All right. And he says certain people have reason, certain people have courage. Let them be masters. The people who do not have courage, do not have reason, let them be slaves. So he's saying nature has created this division. So let's continue with that. So that's the reason why he justifies slavery. All right. So he has already spoken about his theory of state, how he says that state came into life for sake of good life, for sake of life, but continued for the sake of good life. He believes that man is a political animal. Then the theory of slavery, theory of citizenship, theory of property, theory of law, wherein he says more than philosopher king, one person can become corrupt. One person, even if he has reasons, may sometimes act illogically, irrationally. So, what is his conclusion? He says, forget one person. For example, philosopher king, go with community. When there is deliberations happening, when there are discussions happening, so what happens? A collective decision comes up. And that's why he says that collective decision is nothing but your concept of rule of law. So he says law has to be the one which is collective decision making, collective laws. All right, so that they are impersonal and they are reasonable. So there is no passion, no emotions, nothing involved. All right. So now today we'll start with this theory of constitution. He is very analytical. All right. So you're going to be seeing this. And here in theories, especially in his theory of constitution, I'm going to be talking to you about Plato also. I avoided doing this during Plato because it becomes very confusing. So today, while I'm teaching you Aristotle, I'll tell you what Plato also spoke about. So we'll be going back and forth between Aristotle and Plato so that you get a comparison. So if they ever ask you a question about comparing Plato and Aristotle, I'm going to give you a slide also with the answers, but you can add also through whatever I'm teaching you now. All right. So from now on, whatever, wherever required, I'm going to be talking about Plato also. All right. So I want you all to pay attention. This is very important. It is very analytical. All right. So just pay attention. Okay. Let's start with this theory of constitution. Plato classified the governments on basis of law abidingness, while Aristotle uses the criteria of general welfare and number who wielded the power. Okay, Aristotle preferred monarchy as true form of government, but finding a just and virtuous monarch wasn't always possible. So he believed that polity is the best practicable form of government. This is the word you have to use: best practicable form of government. With Aristotle, same as with Plato, he uses constitution, government, state interchangeably because you're talking about a before Christ era. All right. So wherever he's talking about constitution, you can even make it to understand it to be government or state. You can use it interchangeably as Aristotle has done it. Okay. For him, tyranny is the worst form of government in the perverted form. So he gave the following classification. All right. Now, first we'll deal with Aristotle's classification, then I'll tell you the classification that Plato also gave. So you remember both of them. All right. Now, like in the first line itself, I have said that Plato classified the governments on basis of law abidingness, while Aristotle uses the criteria of general welfare. See what is general welfare here? Interest of the people. Can you see the second column here? Interest of the people. That is the concept of general welfare. Okay, when the rule is for the interest of the people, for the when it is for the benefit of the governed class, okay, then it is called as interest of the people. That is why it is general welfare. And basically, which is the perverted form, he uses the word perverted form here, wherein interest of the ruler is taken care of, which is selfish. All right, wherein the ruler takes care of himself, gathers richness for himself, gathers a good life for himself, neglecting the people. All right, so Aristotle divides them into two. He says the normal form is the one which is in the interest of the people. Okay, the perverted form is in the interest of the ruler. I've put them up so that you have to use those words in your answers. Okay, because these are the words which were used by Aristotle. So normal form and perverted form. Okay, but then how to classify? I told you he's called as a father of political science because he went and compared 158 constitutions. So because of that, he came up with a particular analysis, and then for that analysis he said you can decide which is better, which kind of government is better, when you can say whether it rules in the interest of the people or it rules in the interest of the ruler. So basically, he had to classify it on the basis of number of rulers. So he classified it. He had studied 158 constitutions, no? So he had a lot of knowledge. So he started classifying it. But I want to tell you one thing. The same, almost similar classification was given by Plato also. Even though we call Plato a father of political philosophy, he also gave the same classifications, except one change. All right, that I'll tell you when I tell you about Plato after finishing Aristotle. So remember, when you talk about theory of constitution, at least from Aristotle's point of view, the rule is in the interest of the people is good. Rule in the interest of the ruler is perverted form. All right, and he divides it on basis of number of rulers. So now I'm going to tell you, in if then there is only one ruler, and if the rule is good, it is called monarchy. Okay, it is called as monarchy. For example, Queen of England. All right, she's one, she's a queen. Monarchy. All right, interest of the ruler, same, one person ruling, but if the rule is in the interest of the ruler, he's selfish, he's despotic, it is called as tyranny. It is called as tyranny. So one, if there is only one ruler who rules in the interest of the people, we call it monarchy. If he rules in the interest of himself or self-interest, we call it tyranny. All right, so if there are few people ruling, okay, not necessarily all the city states will have only one ruler ruling. So he comes up with few. The second option is few people ruling. Few people ruling, if they rule in the interest of the people, aristocracy. Remember, I told you Plato was from an aristocratic family. All right. So if the few people are ruling in the interest of the people, okay, it is called aristocracy. But if few are ruling in self-interest of those few people, and their only interest is gathering as much as money, as much as riches, and as much as good life as possible for themselves, we call it oligarchy, or Aristotle calls it oligarchy. And repeat again, number of ruler, one. Good form, normal form, monarchy. Perverted form, tyranny. Few. If there are few people ruling, then aristocracy is the normal form. The one which is advisable is aristocracy. Few people ruling in self-interest of those particular rulers or particular people is oligarchy. All right, this is a perverted form of ruling of few. Last is many. All right, if many people rule, all right, then according to Aristotle, it is called as polity because it is in the interest of the people. P for people, P for polity. All right. Here, polity simplistically means democracy, but he has used the word polity. So we have to use the word polity. So whatever words I have used are the same words that have to come in your answers. All right. And rule of many in the interest of those people who are actually wielding political power is called as democracy. All right. So simplistically put, one person ruling is monarchy, in self-interest, tyranny. Few people ruling in interest of the public, it is aristocracy. People ruling in interest of themselves is oligarchy. All right. Then many people ruling in interest of people, it is polity. And many people ruling in interest of the ruler only is democracy. Now, what was he saying? What was Aristotle saying? Aristotle said, I would prefer. Now, imagine I am Aristotle. Aristotle says, I prefer monarchy. He feels monarchy is the best form. Why? There's one person ruling in the interest of the people. But then Plato. And Plato came up with this entire concept of philosopher king, isn't it? So, because he came up with the entire concept of philosopher king, of course, Plato and Aristotle must have discussed it. So, definitely, Aristotle had a first hand information of understanding what Plato was thinking. So, Plato must have told him that, listen, I want an ideal state wherein the philosopher king is the ruler who has absolute power. This is what remains, okay, with Aristotle. So when he starts his classification and the theory of constitution, he comes up with this first concept saying rule of one, monarchy. He realizes that, okay, listen, when I spoke to Plato, what did Plato tell me? That he wanted a philosopher king because he has reason. Okay, philosopher king has reason, and he's come from a meticulous education system. So definitely he's going to be good. So he will have absolute power. So he'll have absolute power. So then Aristotle says, no, no, I prefer rule of law. I told you in his theory of law, he preferred rule of law. So he said, no, monarchy is the best form of government. But finding such a virtuous, such a good ruler, one ruler whose rule will be good, will be in the interest of the people, he will have reason, and he will be away from corrupting influences, is a utopia. It's really difficult. It is idealism. So, monarchy, even though Aristotle preferred monarchy, he realized that it is not possible. It is impractical. You cannot find one ruler who's absolutely virtuous, who is absolutely virtuous, who will only rule in the interest of the people, and who will be absolute embodiment of reason. So that's the reason why, please remember, Aristotle prefers monarchy, but realizes monarchy is not possible. All right, realizes monarchy is not possible because finding one idealist, one perfect philosopher king is impossible. It is utopia. So he says monarchy is not possible. So then he says, okay, compared to monarchy, then aristocracy is better because it has rule of few. Okay, remember rule of law, collective decision making. All right. So he says monarchy is, I would love monarchy, but monarchy is not possible because I cannot find a philosopher king who is so reasonable. So he comes up with the next. He says, okay, monarchy is not possible, then aristocracy is better. All right. Then he says aristocracy is better. But then again, interest of the people, few people ruling, only in the interest of the people is again a little difficult to find. So finally, he concludes best is rule of many, polity. He concludes which is the best rule. Best basically here means practicable. See, I've written here. He believes that polity is the best practicable form of government. This word has to come in your answer. That polity is the best practicable form of government. So I'll repeat again. He prefers monarchy, okay, if it is a rule of one, but realize it is utopia. It's not going to happen. All right. One philosopher king who's very virtuous, reasonable, you cannot find him. All right. So he realizes monarchy is not possible. Let's come to next. He says, okay, compared to monarchy, then aristocracy is good. Okay, better. But then again, rule of few can lead to problems. Okay, it can degenerate. So he says best is polity. Why? Because there is neither one ruling, neither few rich people ruling. It is rule of many. And in many, there will be rich people, there will be poor people, there will be middle class people. Everybody will be involved in polity. So he says, which is the best practicable form of government? polity. Which one would he himself prefer? Monarchy. And repeat again, which one will he prefer? Monarchy. But because of philosopher king, he realizes it's an utopian idea, it is impractical, we cannot come across one person who is so good. So he concludes, best is forget giving the rule in hand of one person and in hands of few people, give it to many. In many people, there will be rich people, there will be poor people, there will be middle class. All of them will come together and form polity. Polity here is nothing but democracy itself. But we have to use the word polity because Aristotle uses it. All right. Now let's come to the perverted form. According to him, monarchy was preferable form of government. Polity was the best practicable. All right. But he did not just stop at giving the best. He even gave the worst format of it. So if monarchy is the best in the interest of the people, if one person is ruling, he says tyranny is the worst. Tyranny is a tyrant. One person, मैं बोलो so कायदा. Whatever I say, you have to follow it. So he says it will be in the interest of the ruler. So he says tyranny is bad. Okay, tyranny is bad. Avoid tyranny. Avoid tyranny. In case there are few rulers, the perverted form will be oligarchy, because these will be rich people, okay, rich and powerful people. They'll only be interested in their own selfish interests. They're not going to be interested in interest of the people. They'll be busy fulfilling their own wishes, getting power for themselves. So he says tyranny is worse. Oligarchy is also bad. All right. So then he comes to the conclusion, okay, let's come to many. Rich, poor, middle class, all put together will be democracy. Okay, will be democracy. But what will happen? Rich, poor, lawlessness. All right, there may be anarchy. And because of this entire chaos that may happen, because of the entire chaos that may happen, what will happen? It may lead to tyranny. He says, because in democracy, there are so many people, there are many people ruling, all right, in the interest of the ruler. So here, it will be interest of the rich, interest of the poor, interest of the middle class. Everybody will go after their self-interest. So what will happen? Lawlessness, anarchy. There will never be political stability. There will constantly be strife and war. And in such a chaos, what will happen? He says one person will come and rule over you. So democracy, because of internal chaos, constant fighting between the middle class, the poor people, and the rich people, will lead to anarchy, lawlessness, and a tyrant may make use of this political instability and form his rule. So he says tyranny is bad, oligarchy is bad, democracy is bad. So which is preferable? He says polity. He says polity is the best practicable. Monarchy is not possible because I cannot find that one perfect king. So I'll rather stick with polity. Okay. Now, he prefers polity as it is a mean between oligarchy and democracy. Polity is rule of many, but not too many. He believed that the rule of middle class is preferable to the rule of few rich or few poor. Class, look at this. What am I trying to say? According to him, remember his concept, golden mean is golden rule. All right. So what is he talking about? Moderation of everything. So he says, what is the worst? Worst is oligarchy. Few people ruling in their own self-interest. See, it is a perverted form. Okay. Democracy, too many people. Chaotic. Again, perverted form. So what is the mean? What is the middle path between oligarchy and democracy? He says polity. Can you see it? This is the golden mean. Oligarchy and democracy के बीच में he says the golden mean is polity. So that's why he says polity is the best practicable, because it has rule of many in the interest of the people, and it is any time better compared to oligarchy, which is perverted form, and democracy, which is its perverted form, which will be chaotic. So between all of this, and especially oligarchy and democracy being the perverted forms, he says we should stick with polity. Polity is nothing but another word he uses for democracy. All right. Now, I want to go back to Plato. I told you here, Plato classified the governments on basis of law abidingness. Okay. Now, Plato never spoke about this classification in the Republic. When we focused on Plato, I was teaching you mostly the Republic, right? This is the second book. He speaks about all of this classification in his second book, that is the Statesman. Just listen to it. Nobody's going to ask you questions about it, but I want you to know. All right, where does this classification come from? Plato's point of view. So when Plato spoke about classification of government on basis of law abidingness, it is in his book called the Statesman. Okay, it's not in the Republic, it's in the Statesman. It is the same format. He says rule of one, best is monarchy. Perverted form is tyranny. So Plato and Aristotle are same when it comes to rule of few. One. Rule of few, according to Plato in the Statesman, is aristocracy, is the good form. That is what he calls law-abiding state. And perverted form, what Aristotle calls, Plato calls it lawless states. Okay? So according to Plato, law-abiding state, one ruler, monarchy is the best. Lawless state, tyranny is the form of government which will come up in lawless states. According to Plato, if there are few rulers, then law abiding states will be aristocracy, will be the form of government. Remember, they're using government, constitution, state interchangeably. Okay, so according to Plato, if few are ruling, it will be aristocracy because they are law abiding. All right, and if few are ruling but they are lawless, it will be oligarchy. It will be oligarchy. So Plato and Aristotle, with regards to number of rulers, one and few, give the same classifications. Give the same classifications. Only part that differs is this, the third one. All right. According to Plato, if many people are ruling and the state or the government or the constitution is law abiding, he calls it moderate democracy. He calls it moderate democracy. All right. Aristotle calls it polity. Plato calls it moderate democracy. I'll repeat this again. Okay, in if many people are ruling and the government is basically law-abiding government, law-abiding constitution, then Plato calls it moderate democracy. All right, and if many are ruling but it is a lawless state, he calls it extreme democracy. He calls it extreme democracy. So, rule of one, monarchy and tyranny remains the same between Plato and Aristotle. If few are ruling, aristocracy and oligarchy remain the same. Only difference is Aristotle calls it interest of the people and interest of the rulers, the perverted form. Plato classifies it on the basis of law abiding state, lawless states. So one is monarchy and perverted form is tyranny for both of them. All right. If few are ruling, aristocracy is the law abiding as well as the normal form according to Aristotle. Oligarchy is the lawless form for Plato and perverted form for Aristotle. Only difference is the last part, many part. Okay. If according to Plato, if many are ruling and the state is law abiding, we'll call it moderate democracy. Plato says if there are many people ruling and the state is basically lawless, he calls it extreme democracy. So moderate democracy, extreme democracy. Aristotle calls it polity and Aristotle calls it democracy. So the first two remain the same. Plato calls it moderate democracy and extreme democracy. Aristotle calls it polity and democracy. Class, whenever you write now, because we're talking about Aristotle, we will talk about polity. All right. So you've understood the classifications. All right. Just show me a thumbs up if you have understood the classification so that I can continue. Have you understood? Okay. Okay. I can see Larib saying he is understood. Anybody else? Okay, I'll continue, okay, because we have a lot to complete. After this topic, we'll have other important topics also to cover. So now that we're talking about classification of constitutions, I've already told you Plato's form as well as Aristotle's form. About polity. according to Aristotle, polity means middle class. Again, his concept of golden mean being the golden rule. So he prefers rule of polity as it is a mean between oligarchy and democracy. I showed you. All right. Polity is rule of many, but not too many. Why many? Many because rich, poor, middle class, all of them are there. But it is not too many because he prefers the rule of middle class. He prefers the rule of middle class. That's why he says polity is a rule of many, because yes, in a society there are going to be very rich people, very poor people, and middle class people. So there are many people, but rule is not of too many, because middle class will be the medium, the mean between the rich and the poor. All right. So it will be a few people who constitute the middle class. All right. That's why he believed that the rule of middle class is preferable to the rule of few rich and rule of many poor. All right. The rule of middle class is better than rule of rich because the rich people do not have the habit of obeying the law. Their rule is full of arrogance towards law. Class, this basically comes from the concept of anti-democracy that they had. All right, because I told you Plato had seen the execution of Socrates, so he was anti-democracy any which ways. So because of that, Aristotle as well as Plato, both of them, Plato, you will see when I talk about the laws, or if you have seen in the Statesman also, that I can also showed you the classification. Plato during Republic was very, what you can say, young, and he was really affected by Socrates' death. So you can see that entire overhauling, restructuring of a society, etc., was happening. He was very idealist. By the time he came to statesman, he accepted moderate democracy as well as extreme democracy as form of governments. All right. From person who was completely anti-democrat to accept that okay, there can be a good form of moderate democracy also. He's come a long way. All right. So in statesman, he's already become a little bit more mature and he's cooled down. All right. That's the reason why both of them prefer the rule of middle class. All right. Now, the rule of middle class is better than the rule of rich because both of them had the same experience. They felt if the people are rich, they do not follow rules because they feel I have money, I can do whatever I want. So their rule will be full of arrogance. So that's the reason why Aristotle says we are not going to give the rule to rich people. All right. On the other hand, he says poor lack the capacity to rule and are ignorant. They don't have education. Okay. They don't have much knowledge. Poor people will be more bothered about getting square meal, getting proper food than being bothered about political processes. So he says rich people are too arrogant, poor people are too ignorant. All right, because poor people have to worry about their stomach, filling their stomach rather than ruling. All right. So because of that, this he says rule of middle class is the best practical, okay, and they can give you stability. So how does he justify it? He says the rule of middle class is better than the rule of rich because the rich people do not have a habit of obeying law. Their rule is full of arrogance towards law, while on the other hand the poor lack the capacity to rule and are ignorant because they're bothered about filling their stomachs, not about political process. All right. So the rich and the poor hate each other, but they trust the middle class. See, poor and rich, they're two antithetical classes. Of course, they're going to hate each other. All right. So because of that, there can be political instability because when you have two classes who are absolutely antagonistic to each other, they'll always be fighting. Karl Marx's entire theory of class struggle is based on this concept. Okay, so basically they're rich and very poor people. There is so much of division that they'll always hate each other. All right, they'll always hate each other, and because of that, what will happen? There will be chaos. So Aristotle wanted to avoid all of that, and he says rich and poor hate each other, but they trust the middle class because rich people and the middle class people have property. All right, so rich people feel okay, you understand my problems. Poor people and the middle class people both have to worry about their livelihoods. Okay, middle class people and the poor people, both of them have to work for their livelihood. So even poor people empathize with middle class, rich people also empathize with the middle class. So for them, middle class is like the golden mean is golden rule. They are moderate. Rich people like the middle class. Poor people also like the middle class. And that's the reason why Aristotle says rule of the middle class is the best. Middle class has a stake in stability of a society and generally have an habit of obedience of law as property has given them a sense of responsibility because they have moderate property, okay, and they still have to work for their livelihood, so they can identify with the rich as well as with the poor. So when a middle class people or people from middle class come together and make rules, they'll make rules for benefit of middle class, the poor as well as rich. That's why he says these people, the middle class people, are the best possible class to rule. They have the power to make decisions, and hence there are less chances of revolutions. Because see, the middle class, like I told you, rich can identify with them, poor also can identify with them. Rich understand that being property class, what middle class go through. Poor people understand that, okay, listen, even middle class has to work for their livelihood. So they can identify with the middle class people and make rules for the benefit of middle class. So that's why Aristotle says rule of the middle class is the best. Okay. So okay, class, can you hear me now? Class, can you hear me? Okay, Aditi, you can hear me. Okay, fine. Anjali, Siddesh, okay, fine. You can hear me. Fine, I'll continue then. Okay. So basically, have you understood till now why he says rule of middle class is better? Because the decisions will be in happiness and for all, benefit of all, the rich, the poor, and the middle class. Hence, there will be no revolution. I told you last time also when I was teaching you yesterday, where I was teaching you rule of law, especially theory of law. I said any small change for Aristotle was a revolution. A small change was a revolution. So he wanted to avoid all of that. That's why he said polity is the best, rule of the middle class is the best. What is supposed to be the conclusion? It is always good if more number of people in the state are from middle class. Extreme inequality of wealth or income isn't good for the stability of the state. So he understands this. He understands, no, the golden mean is golden rule. So he says rule of the middle class is the best because middle class can keep rich people happy as well as the poor people happy. Okay. So with this, we end the concept of your theory of constitution. Class, I'll again repeat, please remember monarchy, tyranny, aristocracy, oligarchy, polity, and democracy for Aristotle. Monarchy, tyranny, aristocracy, oligarchy, moderate democracy, and extreme democracy for Plato. Plato divides it on the basis of law abiding states and lawless states. Aristotle calls it interest of the people and interest of the ruler. All right, that I've already written here. And then what is his conclusion? Polity is the best practicable government. See, I've written here. Polity is the best practicable form of government. What is polity? Rule of middle class. So rich people are also happy with the rule. Poor people are also happy with the rule. Now we come to a major theory. All right. It is a theory of revolution. Like I told you, for Aristotle, any change, big or small, violent or peaceful, any change in the form of government constitutes revolution by Aristotle. It's considered. One second, class. I think my net connection is a little unstable. Okay. The search for stability through polity made Aristotle examine the causes for instability and change and revolutions and prescribe remedial measures. So, because of this concept for stability, okay, Aristotle, because he had studied, compared 158 constitutions, he saw various different polities, he saw various different form of governments, and because of that, he realized stability is very important, but any change can happen. All right. See, change is the only constant. That's what we always keep on saying, right? Aristotle is very pragmatic. Okay. He understands that change is going to come. So for him, any change, minute or big, is a revolution. But let's not forget, we're talking about BC, before Christ period. Plato equated change with decay and corruption, but Aristotle considers change as inevitable. Plato believed that ideal state will also degenerate into democracy, oligarchy, democracy, and tyranny. Now, class, I wanted to understand that how does this concept of revolution of Aristotle comes in? Now, Aristotle, of course, is a disciple of Plato, and Plato, like I told you, okay, during Republic was very immature, was completely emotional because of Socrates' execution. But as Plato matures, all right, you see a very different part of him, all right, and in that he starts looking at other stuff, and then he realizes that, listen, even if I create an ideal state, change, decay is going to happen. Any good thing is always going to come to an end because it is cyclic. Change is always going to happen. All right. But Plato, being the radical that he is, he doesn't look at it in a very positive way. Like Aristotle considers change as inevitable. He says, yeah, change is going to come. That's why he's very practical to come up with the concept of revolution. He says, anytime, see, there's nothing constant. Change is the only constant. So Aristotle is taking it in a very positive manner, and that's why he frames his concept of revolution, not Plato. Plato, okay, he looks at it in a very negative manner. He says this is decay and corruption. So now let's talk about Plato first, then let's come to Aristotle's theory of revolution. All right. When Plato talks about decay and degeneration and corruption, what he's talking about is that even if we create an ideal state with a proper meticulous education system, with community of wife and property of the guardian class, with philosopher king ruling, it is going to degenerate. Good things will come to an end. There will be a decay. So, what is a decay he's talking about? He's talking about these decays. He says, how will a decay of ideal state happen? Okay. Now we're talking about Plato. So, Plato says, ideal state may happen, but after a particular time, even after temporary sexual unions, the children and the offspring may not be always dominated by reason. They may become selfish. All right. The guardian class people also may become selfish. They may become very, what you can say, materialistic and go only behind money. They may only go behind money, power, have constant wars with each other, constant wars with others. So that will lead to ideal state will degenerate into first democracy, where might is right. If you have power, you can do whatever you want. So he is accepting it now. Okay, Plato is accepting that yes, decay and corruption of ideal state is going to happen. Okay, first from ideal state it will go to democracy, because the guardian class does not have family. The temporary sexual unions will come up with offspring who are not very bright, who do not always have reason and courage dominating, and even if they have it, okay, it will be a perverted form of it. They will use that for gathering wealth, they'll use that for gathering honors, etc., for themselves. So from ideal state degeneration, first step will be democracy. Now, because there is complete might is right, all right, people will not be happy. So, finally, few people, rule of few. I told you, oligarchy is a perverted form of rule of few, all right. And according to Plato, lawless state of few. From democracy, because of constant warfare, people will be tired. So certain few people who are rich, okay, will snatch the power, all right, and they will rule. But because of oligarchy, what will happen? Rich people will become richer and richer and richer, and poor people will become poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. What happens to antithetical classes? Very rich and very poor. Neither of them are happy. Rich are going to hate the poor, poor are going to hate the rich. So, because of that, even if oligarchy happens, it will not continue for a very long time, because poor people will not be happy with only few rich people having everything in life, having all the richness. So, they will revolt and form democracy. They'll form democracy, wherein now all of us are equal. Whether you are rich or poor, you are equal. That's the principle of democracy, that everybody is generally equal, considered to be equal in eyes of law. So democracy will happen. But again, it will be chaotic. Okay, remember what Plato said about democracy: moderate democracy, extreme form of democracy. So, extreme form of democracy will happen because it is going to be lawless. Because poor and rich people cannot cooperate with each other, they will not cooperate with each other. So, because of that, it will lead to constant chaos. And because of that constant chaos, lawlessness, anarchy, because of extreme democracy, finally one person will say, enough of this chaos, bus, now I will rule over you. Now whatever I say, you have to follow it. See, cycle. Again, philosopher king was one person ruling, okay, created an ideal state, but because of decay, it got into decayed or degenerated into democracy. Not good offsprings. They became more concerned with might is right, power, wars, etc. So people were not happy. So oligarchy came. Okay, oligarchy was rule of few. They were already rich people. They kept on piling more wealth for themselves. So poor people were not happy, led to creation or establishment of democracy. But democracy with extreme class divisions, very rich and very poor people. So there was chaos. And in this entire chaos, finally one person said, wow, very good. There is chaos going on. Let's go ahead and establish my rule. So finally, rich people also wanted peace and stability. Poor people also wanted poor people also wanted stability. So finally, they said, okay, listen, we want security. So finally, they accepted the rule of a tyrant. What is tyrant? Rule of one. Okay, they accepted rule of one. मैं बोलो so kaida. They said, okay, whatever you say, I will follow it. The same situation you're going to see when I teach you Hobbes also. Not democracy, etc. He has his own justification, but the same rule of one. Absolute sovereign is what even Hobbes is going to talk about. So that time also I'll talk about this with you so that you get an interlinkage. All right. So this is Plato's concept. So Plato is not very happy with this concept, but he accepts that, okay, decay and corruption is going to happen. Ideal state will degenerate into democracy. Democracy won't survive, will degenerate into oligarchy. Oligarchy will not survive, will go into democracy. And finally, because of the chaos ensued here, finally a tyrant will come and say, whatever I say now you have to follow. So this is Plato's concept of decay and corruption. All right. So because Plato came up with this concept, Aristotle realized that yes, see, Plato is making a sense here. He makes sense that yes, change is going to be coming, whether you like it or you don't like it. And imagine an ideal state created on the basis of a reason, ruled by philosopher king, can degenerate. Okay, there's a possibility of ideal state degenerating. Then people like you and me, middle class people, we are very normal people. So even we will face change. All right. So Aristotle also realizes that, listen, if ideal state can degenerate, change is going to be inevitable. And that's the reason why, understanding the inevitability of change, he comes up with this theory of revolution. But because, like I told you, he has classified and studied so many constitutions, he has made revolution and generalized revolution into general causes as well as particular causes. Okay. So what does he say? There has to be a particular reason for revolution to take place. So he says commonest cause of revolution was feeling of inequality, whether real or imaginary. Inequality. See why revolution happens? Because there is a feeling of inequality. For example, in democracy, might is right. So the people who were not very powerful must have felt, listen, this is inequality. Only the rich people, only the powerful people are getting everything. In democracy, rich people were getting everything. Poor people were becoming poorer and poorer. So there is a feeling of inequality. Feeling is inside. All right. It may be real, it may be imaginary. All right. So that is the commonest cause of revolution according to Aristotle. So he finally concludes that stability and revolution are both important to Aristotle's agenda of political ideals, and Aristotle analyzed general and particular causes of revolution. Now he's talking about general causes. Generally, why revolution happens. He told you basic issue is feeling of inequality. Whether it is real or whether it is imaginary, it is basically taught in the state or polis. Okay, but there's generally a feeling of inequality where a revolution starts. So now he's only talking about a general view. Then he'll come to the particular view. So, general causes of revolution are categorized into three by Aristotle. First, he says psychological motives or state of mind. For example, he says equality, demand, or desire in oligarchy. What is oligarchy? It is rule of few. In rule of few, you cannot have equality. So if people start demanding equality in rule of few people, rich people rule, it is impossible. It is not ideal situation. It is not going to happen. Those oligarchs, few people will never give you power. Okay, complete power corrupts you completely. They will not want to share their power. So if you demand equality, okay, or even if you desire equality in rule of few, and oligarchy is a perverted form of rule of few, they will not share. Oligarchs, the rule of few, will not share power with you. So that's the reason why this is the first psychological reason. Okay, second is inequality in democracy. I told you what is democracy. It's a rule of many. All right, in that there is rich, there are poor, there is middle class, everybody. So if there is a feeling of inequality, see, it is psychological. Like he said, it can be real, it can be imaginary, depends from one city state to another. So if in democracy people start realizing that yes, there is inequality, of course it's going to lead to revolution. They will revolt because everybody wants good for themselves. Everybody is self-centered. All right, everybody wants good for themselves. So this is the first concept, psychological motive or state of mind. In oligarchy, if you demand equality or even desire inequality, it is not going to be possible. They're not going to share their power with you. Nobody wants to share power with you. And in democracy, the feeling of inequality can lead to revolution. This is a general cause. This can happen in any city state, according to him. All right. The objective in mind. What are the objectives? Profit, honor, fear, superiority in some form, contempt of those ruling over you, election intrigues, negligence of people by the ruling class. All of these issues, again, imaginary or real, can lead to general causes of revolution. See, whether it is psychological motives or whether there's objectives in the mind, it's basically talking about the concept of inequality. Somewhere down the line, there is inequality, there is a feeling of inequality, there is a feeling that I am not getting the honor, the respect, the status that is supposed to be given to me, which is supposed to be enjoyed by everybody. So there is inequality, there is a class division. And because of that, it can either be psychological, because psychological motives and objectives in mind. It can be psychological, all right, that is imaginary, or it could be real. All right. And last is in general causes. The third is occasions that gave rise to political upheaval, like desire for profits, disproportionate increase in one part or element of a state. For example, certain occasions can happen. All right. Like, for example, let's take oligarchy. What is oligarchy? Rule of few. They are the noble people, okay, who are ruling in self interest. They will, of course, want their profits to keep on increasing. They will not want to share their profits with somebody else. So, what will happen? Disproportionate increase will happen. The few people who are controlling power control everything. They have money, they have military power, they have everything, they have whatever is required, they have it, while the other people will not have it, the poor people will not have it. So there is disproportion in state. And all such things, the ruling class is very rich and the ruled are very poor, leads to disproportion. Okay, even the rich people want to increase their power while poor people want a share in power. All of this will lead to disproportion, it will lead to instability, and because of this a revolution can happen. These are the general causes of revolution. Okay, so it is based on the feeling of inequality, which is real or imaginary. So psychological motives, objectives in mind is all can be imaginary. Okay, and occasions can be the real. It can happen in certain societies. So he's speaking about both inequalities, okay? Inequality, whether imaginary or the real one. It's not only this, it can be other causes also. Corruption can be one of the major reasons for revolution. Social imbalance caused by few rich and majority poor. Common sense, all right? State rewarding the undeserving and vice versa. So if state only rewards the undeserving, what will happen? The deserving people will start feeling neglected. They'll start feeling that I am not being given the same respect, the same status as other people. Nobody is respecting my knowledge. And that can lead to a feeling of inequality. It can lead to feeling of inequality and can also be one of the causes for revolution. Class, have you understood general causes? Have you understood general causes of revolution? Okay, thanks, Anjali. Okay, Mansi, Himanshu, Aditi, Asif, Akansha, Tejas, Siddesh, have you all understood? Okay, now we are going to go into particular causes. So it's going to be much more. So please pay attention. Okay, so now we have only dealt with general causes. Now Aristotle speaks about particular causes. So each and every form of government, constitution, state we spoke about. Now we're speaking about what can be particular causes of revolution in each. What can be a particular cause of revolution in monarchy? He says fear. Okay, you can fear a monarch is only one person ruling. All right. Contempt, you may feel contempt at, look, he's only one person and he's wielding all the power. Desire for fame, monarch may also have desire for more fame and go for expansionism. So he may desire by neighboring states to extend their boundaries, so there can be wars happening. Jealousy among family members. All of us have heard about this concept of Ashoka having killed his 99 brothers. All right. So there can be jealousy among family members. Palace conspiracies. Okay. All of these can be reasons for causes of revolution in monarchy. I'll repeat again: fear of the monarch, contempt at the power which is yielded by monarch, desire for fame. Monarch himself will want more fame for himself. If you remember, in ancient India, we had this major things, of kings or the emperors taking this major titles: Maharaja, Dhiraja, Gautami Putra, Satkarni, etc. So they had this major thing about, desire for more fame, desire for titles, etc. All right. So that can be a reason. Desire by neighboring states to extend their boundaries. Wars can happen. All right. Jealousy amongst family members. Of course, there's only one person ruling. All right. So there can be jealousy amongst the family members. They may want to kill the monarch and come and become the ruler themselves, or come and become the monarch themselves. Palace conspiracies. All right, they can happen. Your people can conspire against you. Your family, your want to be successor or would be successor, can conspire against you and kill you. So that can happen. Best example is Julius Caesar. All right, Julius Caesar, all of us know about it. He was killed by Brutus. This is exactly what we're talking about: palace conspiracies. All right. So in monarchy, these are the reasons, these are the particular causes of revolution in monarchy. What are the particular causes of revolution in oligarchy? Oligarchy is what? Rule of few, oppression of the masses, and dissensions within the ruling elite. What is oppression of the masses? Poor people. Because oligarchy is a perverted form of rule of the few. Those people will want to accumulate wealth, power, rewards, whatever you get. And it will lead to oppression of the masses, because the rule is in the favor of the ruling few, not in the favor of masses. Plus, there can be divisions within the ruling elite also. Those few people that are ruling you, they also can have power politics. They can have issues with each other. So that dissent also can happen. So in the particular causes of revolution in oligarchy are oppression of the masses or dissension within the ruling elite. This is according to Plato, because he studied 158 constitutions. He's coming up with these conclusions. Now come to democracy. Okay. Now he's using the word democracy, not polity. So democracy definitely is talking about the perverted form. Okay, so in the perverted form, what can be the particular cause of revolution in democracy? Poverty, of course. Very rich, very poor people, chaos. So poverty is reason. Ignorance, I told you. That's why he preferred the rule of the middle class, because middle class people had property also, and they had a concept of living, doing something for the case of livelihood. So they were interested in the stability. Okay, even if they were concerned with livelihood, they still had property. So they were now having time and ability to concentrate on political processes so that they can maintain the kind of life they're ruling. But the poor people, they were only concerned with what? Two square meals. I should get my food. They're not going to be concerned about who is building power. All right. This is true even today. This is true even today. All right. Then emergence of a demagogic leader who attacked the rich and instigated the masses. Demagogues. If you've read Julius Caesar, you must have read about Mark Antony. All right. Demagogue is a person who uses your own emotions, passions, okay, rather than rational arguments to make you believe something. So he has great oratorial skills. He's great oratorial skills, etc. So that is called as a demagogic leader who attacked the rich and instigated the masses. So who's telling you, who's, see, there is already a, what you can say, tension between the rich and the poor people in society. All right, to survive with each other, there's always going to be constant strife. In that, if you add a ruler who is trying to instigate you, or a leader, sorry, not ruler, a leader who's instigating the poor against the rich, okay, he's creating more lawlessness, he's creating more chaos. That also can be a particular cause for revolution in democracy, because democracy is, we are talking about the perverted form of democracy here. In aristocracy, okay, aristocracy was the good form, the normal form, but there can be certain issues in aristocracy also which can lead to revolution. So what are those issues? Policy of narrowing the circle of government. The rank and file of people consider themselves as worthy as their rulers. Good individuals were excluded from honors. All right. And revolt may be due to feeling of unfair treatment amongst the poor. Policy of narrowing the circle of government. Again, aristocracy, like oligarchy, is rule of few. So it may happen. See, complete power corrupts you completely. Oligarchy may be the perverted form of rule of few. Aristocracy may be good. But the issue with aristocracy can be, even if I am good, philosopher king was supposed to be good. But we still had the belief, no, Aristotle still said that, okay, even if philosopher king has reasons, you cannot guarantee that philosopher king may not go bad. He may not go rogue. So in aristocracy, there are few people. So there are going to be constant strife for power between them. So in that case, the people who are in the rule of few, the people who are a little bit more powerful compared to the others will want to take as much as power as possible for themselves. So that can lead to a cause for revolution. Rank and file people may also start feeling that why only these few people should rule. Even I am intelligent, even I have power, even I am good enough, so even I should be sharing power. So that discontentment amongst the people can also be one of the particular cause for revolution in aristocracy, according to Aristotle. Good individuals excluded from the honor, similar to the second one. Okay, revolt may be due to feeling of unfair treatment amongst the poor. I told you the basic cause, what Aristotle said, was inequality. The feeling of inequality, whether true or imaginary, can be again a particular cause of revolution in aristocracy. So now he's spoken about the general causes, other causes, then he came to particular causes. So in monarchy, particular causes are these. In oligarchy, particular causes are these. In democracy, these are the particular causes that can lead to revolution. In aristocracy, these are the causes that can lead to revolution. Okay, but he doesn't stop there. He just doesn't give you general causes of revolution and a particular causes of revolution. He goes beyond and says remedies are also required for preventing revolution. All right, so he gives you remedies for preventing revolution. So he goes the same wise. So he says, in monarchy, what should you do to prevent revolution? Inculcate a spirit of obedience to law and distrust demagogues. Okay, so he's saying inculcate the feeling of obedience. Inculcate the feeling of obedience in whom? In rich as well as poor. Rich people do not have the feelings, they do not believe in obeying somebody because they themselves powerful. So in monarchy, that king, okay, the philosopher king or the monarch, whatever, or the emperor or the king, whatever you want to call him as, okay, he should inculcate the feeling of obedience to law. All right, it is very required. This exact concept, know how to bring about an obedience of law, is entire thing that you're going to study under Machiavelli. Machiavelli is exactly going to tell you what to do. All right, so Aristotle is telling monarch that, listen, to avoid or prevent revolution in monarchy, inculcate the spirit of obedience of law. Okay, carrot and stick method, so that both the rich as well as poor people obey the law. Only when law is obeyed, there can be stability. All right. Next, distrust demagogues. See, demagogues, they are the people who can instigate people, create chaos when there is none. So he says, any person who has great oratorical skills, pay attention to that person. All right, because he's a person today speaks in the favor of monarch, tomorrow may go and instigate people against the monarch. So distrust people who are demagogues. In oligarchy and aristocracy, because both of them are rule of few, he says ensure that rulers are on good terms with people and civic bodies, avoid inequalities in granting offices and merits, and strengthening the middle class. Okay, so ensure that you're on good terms so that everybody feels heard. Rich people as well as poor people feel good. See, if you give importance to people, all right, they will definitely obey you. If you respect them, if you show them that you care for them, okay, they'll definitely respect you, they'll not revolt against you. That's exactly what Aristotle is telling oligarchs as well as aristocracy, that even if you're few people ruling because of your power and money, ensure that you're on good terms with people. Okay, ensure that you avoid inequalities in granting offices. If you are awarding certain things to the rich, award the poor people also, so that everybody feels respected, everybody feels that yes, they are heard. All right, so avoid inequalities, and by doing so, start strengthening the middle class people, because Plato says middle class people are the golden means, they're the moderates. They will keep the entire oligarchy as well as aristocracy floating, because they will give you the moderate path. Okay, so he has told you about what is supposed to be done in a monarchy to avoid revolution. He has told you what is supposed to be done by oligarchs as well as the aristocratic class to avoid revolution. In democracy, he says, give right to vote to the poor and disadvantaged. See, I told you, rich and poor in democracy hate each other. All right, they poor feel rich get everything. Rich feel poor don't deserve anything. So they are absolutely antagonistic classes, antithetical classes with each other. Okay, one looking at Tokyo, another looking at London. So to bring them together, what should you do? Aristotle says, give right to vote to the poor. Let them participate in a democracy so that the poor and the disadvantaged people will feel respected. I told you, if a person feels respected, they will always obey. They'll always support you. They'll not go against you. He's using that same concept of psychology here. He says, give them the right to vote to the poor and disadvantaged, and give them a stake in government by giving them political rights. Simplistically put, what is right to vote? It's a political right. All right, you're giving them a status, you're giving them a stake in the democratic government. So poor people will feel fine, rich people, even if you have money, even I am respected. See, in democracy, I've still been given right to vote, I've given political rights, so I have a stake in the government, I have a say in the democratic government. So what happens? Poor people feel heard, they feel respected. And when you feel respected, you feel heard, you feel secured, you feel equal, there will be no revolutions, there will be no revolutions. All right, so basically the concept of general causes of revolution, particular causes of revolutions, and the remedies. But Aristotle doesn't stop there. He goes on to add that to maintain constitutional stability, again, Constitutional here again means state or government, interchangeably used. So here constitutional can be aristocracy or oligarchy, polity or democracy, monarchy or tyranny. Three qualities are required for the office bearers. See, till now he was talking about other people, okay, the rulers. But there are other office bearers also. So he says any person who holds a particular position in a society, okay, especially wherein you are going to be yielding law, you're going to be making law, implementing law, what are you supposed to do? He says stay loyal, loyalty to the established constitution. So if you are a polity, stay loyal to polity. If you have what you can say monarchy, stay loyal to monarchy. So whatever established constitution, state or government you have, office bearers have to be loyal to that. All right, don't try to change it. If you try to change from from polity to anything else, for Aristotle is a revolution, and he wants to avoid revolution. So he says loyalty to the established constitution in your polis, in your city state, continue with that. Good administrative capacity. So he says you should have good administrative capacity, so that whatever laws are made, whatever rules are made, they should be properly implemented so that they reach the people for whom they are meant for. So loyalty to the established constitution, good administrative capacity, and now personal integrity of character, goodness and justice in all forms. All right. Justice here, same. Proportionate justice. Equals should be treated equally, unequals should be treated unequally. So he's talking about loyalty to the established constitution, good administrative capacity, integrity of character, goodness, and justice in all forms. See, this is applicable even today. Even in the current scenario, this is applicable. Even when you become IAS, IPS, IFS officers, you should also have the same qualities. All right, should be inculcating the same qualities. So look at his foresight. In BC period, he's come up with all of this. He's understood revolutions. He's given you general causes of revolutions, particular causes of revolutions. He's analyzed how to avoid revolutions, and he has come up with these principles also to see to it that the stability is maintained. So therefore, he suggests that change is natural. I told you it is inevitable. Okay. People also change. So change is going to be inevitable. People also change. It's not just the nature. You and me also change. What you were 5 years back, today you're different. Tomorrow you may be different. Like I told you, change is the only constant. He suggests the state to take appropriate measures after understanding the causes of revolution. Of course, he's just given you general causes and the particular causes, not necessary that all these causes will happen. So he says that listen, any part of state, whether it is monarchy or tyranny, whether it is aristocracy or oligarchy, whether it is polity or democracy, understand the reason for which a revolution is taking place. Okay. And then take appropriate measures. What is appropriate measures? Do something to curb the issue, curb the chaos, curb the reason for because of which the revolution is becoming inevitable. So what is the relevance of his theory of revolution? It has inspired modern theories of revolution and also helped in understanding contemporary revolutions. Okay. He deals with the real issue of politics, unlike Plato, who only focused on ethics. Plato's entire focus was on creating of an ideal state. Ideal state is definitely ethical because it is ought to be, not what is. And he not only analyzes the causes but enlists the measures to contain a revolution. So he has not left it in middle. That's why he's considered as a father of political science and father of comparative politics, because Aristotle analyzes everything, looks at it from all the angles, okay, and then gives a proper theory. Whether he's talking about justice, in justice also he's looking at it from proper perspective. He says there are two type of justice. One is rectificatory, remedial. Second is distributive. In property also he analyzes all the three formats and then finally says no. Individual ownership, common use is the best. So he's analyzing. In revolution, he is analyzing what are the general causes, what are the particular causes, how can you remedy them. All right. Then in constitution, he's analyzing which are the perverted forms, which are the good forms of government. So he's analyzing. So that is what Aristotle does, and that's why he's called as a father of political science as well as father of comparative politics. Okay, now this is a very important short note that is generally asked, so I'm giving you the answer here itself. All right, Aristotle's ideal state can be Plato's second best state. What is Aristotle's ideal state? The same one, based on whatever I have taught you, that the state is important for good life of a citizen or good life of a person. Then the concept of slavery, the slavery remains, citizenship only granted to the people who have the ability and time to participate in the political processes. Justice is is rectificatory as well as distributory justice. Then property, individual ownership, and common use. Then his classification of constitutions, etc. So when you have everything put together, it becomes Aristotle's ideal state. But Plato's ideal state was what I taught you, remember? Community of wife and property, a philosopher king, education system going on till age of 50. But that time I told you, Republic was written by Plato when he was very young. Okay, and because of that, he was radical in his views. He wanted overhauling, restructuring. By the time Plato came from Republic to statesman, what was statesman? The classifications that I told you: moderate democracy and extreme democracy. All right. Then the concept I told you about democracy, how ideal state degenerates into democracy, etc. You can see by the time he comes to statesman, he's maturing. But his most matured is the laws. This is the laws. So Aristotle's ideal state in the politics and Plato's second best state in the laws. See, I've written it here. In the laws are said to be very similar to each other. That's why it is said Aristotle's ideal state can be Plato's second best state. All right. So Plato speaks about his second best state in his book, The Laws. It is similar to Aristotle's ideal state that he established in politics. I told you during the writing of Republic, Plato was relatively young, so his theories were radical, but the laws was written when he was matured, okay, and less idealistic. The state envisioned by Plato and Aristotle have the same methodology and almost similar characteristics. Now, what are the characteristics of states that we consider to be Aristotle's ideal state and Plato's second best state? It will be rule of polity based on rule of law. Polity, because now we're talking about Aristotle, all right? In Plato's second best state, it will be called as moderate democracy, all right? And based on rule of law. Remember, I taught you yesterday that rule of collective wisdom is better than rule of philosopher king. So even Plato now realizes that, listen, philosopher king is very idealistic. All right. See, I told you he's less idealistic in the laws. So even he realizes that no, philosopher king in idea sounds excellent, but it's not going to happen. All right. So instead of rule of philosopher king, now he says collective wisdom. That is, rule of law is better. So for Aristotle, polity based on rule of law. For Plato also, it is a similar concept. Okay. Both of them agree population shouldn't be too large or too small, but sufficient enough. All right. Population, if it is too large, see now, today India is in the 21st century, so we can manage. But here you imagine they are in the BC period. So for them, any form of government, whether it is monarchy, whether it is aristocracy, or whether it is polity for Aristotle, or whether it is monarchy or aristocracy or moderate democracy for Plato, because I'm talking about the good forms, the law abiding forms. Okay. Population, if it is too large, will become difficult to manage. If it is too small, also it will become difficult to protect because there'll be not many people in your warrior class. So they say sufficient enough of population is required so that you can manage. Okay, so you can manage them properly. So population shouldn't be too large, neither too small, but sufficient enough. Territory also should be neither too big nor too small, related to your population. All right. Larger territory becomes difficult to control. Smaller territory is small, but there is always a threat of foreign rule or foreign invasions. So it should neither be too big for administrative reasons, neither too small for defense purposes. It should be moderate. Again, Aristotle's concept of moderation. Golden mean is the golden rule. Distribution of political offices according to the merit of a person. Meritocracy. All right. His, I told you, Aristotle's concept of justice, theory of justice is based on merit. Equals should be treated equally, unequals to be treated unequally. It has to be proportionate. All right. So political offices should be distributed according to the merit of a person. All right. Economy and polity should reflect mixed constitutions. Plus, what do you mean by mixed constitutions? Because you're talking about before Christ era, all right? It was very difficult to only have democracy that you see now, all right? And you still have problems. We had national emergency 75 to 77. US, you saw what happened in the Capitol before Joe Biden was inaugurated as a president on 20th. You saw what Donald Trump's supporters did. So democracy also can have its own problems in 21st century. So imagine you're talking about BC period. So at that period of time, he says economy and polity should reflect mixed constitutions in the sense that only democracy, only aristocracy, only monarchy is not going to be possible. There's going to be a mixture. Okay, they're going to be rich people, they're going to be poor people, they're going to be middle class people. So all of them put together, the best possible constitution is the mixed constitution, so that everybody feels heard. All right. So they're talking about an economy and polity which is based on mixed constitution. Golden mean is the golden rule, the moderation part. All right. And of course, the citizens should be abiding. He said the same thing about basically your remedial measures also. That you should be abiding by the constitution that you have. Office bearers also, as well as the people who are ruled, should also be law abiding. If they are law abiding, less chaos will ensue. Less chaos, less chances of revolution. Less chances of revolution, political stability will be achieved. Therefore, we say Aristotle's ideal state is Plato's second best state. Okay, have you understood this part? It is Aristotle's ideal state can be said as Plato's second best state. Generally, a short note is asked on this. This is supposed to be your answer. But just remember to write about second best state in his book, The Laws. All right. For Aristotle, it is politics only. All right. Now, Plato and Aristotle, similarities as well as differences. Both agree that the state is required for virtuous life. Okay. Both believe that man is a political animal. Plato also believed that philosopher king will want to rule. He's not giving philosopher king a chance or an autonomy to decide whether he wants to rule or no. He has educational capabilities. He has reasons. He passes through all the educational tests. He's good enough. So Plato says man is a political animal. Man here means philosopher king. Aristotle himself says, listen, we created a state because we were political animals, because we were not self sufficient. Our needs were constantly increasing. So man was not happy alone, formed a family. Family, he was not happy, formed a village. Village, he was not happy. Finally, for self sufficiency, formed a state. And the state was created for giving life to people. But because state created avenues for good life, people were more than happy and state continued. So both Plato as well as Aristotle agree that man is political animal. Both are elitist. Both of them are anti-democracy generally. Okay, but more so they are elitist. They always believe that the Greek race is a little superior to the other race. Okay, and Plato himself belonged to an aristocratic family. Aristotle himself came from a very rich family. His father was a physician, okay, in the Macedonian court. So both of them were from decent families. Plato from aristocratic, noble family, but not very rich. Aristotle from a rich family. So they are elitist, okay. But Plato is a perfectionist because he wanted an ideal state. Aristotle believes in best practicable state or constitution, that is polity. Both gave significance to education. All right. Plato is the father of political philosophy. Why? Because he believes in what ought to be, how it is supposed to be. Okay, not what is, and deserves to be called the. And Aristotle is basically the one who is the father of political science as well as father of comparative politics. Why? Because he's talking about so many practical concepts. He's talking about constitutions, he's talking about rule of law, he's talking about justice concept that you understand now, he's talking about citizenship that you understand now, he's talking about revolutions, causes of revolutions, remedies of revolutions. And that's the reason why he covers a huge spectrum of politics. That's why he's called as the father of political science. All right. Next, Plato's Republic is encyclopedic in nature, while politics of Aristotle deals with study of constitution, rule of law, revolution, etc. While I was teaching you Plato's Republic, we spoke about so many things. You remember transmigration of soul, immortality of soul, the concept of knowledge, virtue is knowledge, all of that concept, then philosopher king, education system, community of wife and property. So it is encyclopedia. All right, Plato's Republic is an encyclopedia because it's not just a political treatise, it is a social treatise. He's trying to reform not just the political class, he's trying to reform the social class also. Through basically the community of wife and property, etc., educational system, etc. He's trying to reform the social class by concept of justice, reason, courage and appetite, your souls doing your work properly, and justification of philosopher king. He's talking about basically the political changes also. So Republic is encyclopedic, while politics of Aristotle, politics is the book written by Aristotle, is very pragmatic. Entire things that I have taught you is what is covered in Aristotle's politics. That's why it is said to be one of the best treatises on politics. All right, and that's why Aristotle is called as the father of political science. Conclusion: Aristotle rectifies the limitations of Plato and deserves to be called the father of political science. What has he rectified? Philosopher king. He says, no, 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 no philosopher king. We'll rather go by rule of law. That is his concept of law. Justice. He says, yes, those three souls and the concept of justice seems to be nice. But in society, you should have remedial justice, rectificatory justice, or distributive justice, judicial system and political system, which is making policies. So he's rectifying the limitations of Plato. Same with this concept of constitution. Aristotle says, listen, monarchy is the best. But philosopher king, one person so virtuous is very difficult to find. So it's not going to be possible. So he is rectifying the limitations of Plato and therefore deserves to be called as a father of political science. He defended rule of law for it provided stability and reason as opposed to passion. Passion here means philosopher king, rule of one. Okay? But his defense of slavery and limiting women to the confines of home reflects his conserving elements of his theory. While Plato here is very strong, Plato says, look, women, if they have reason and courage, if they can be constituted as a guardian class, let's not bind them in monogamous marriage and child rearing. Okay, let's utilize that goodness for the benefit of polis, for the benefit of a city state. They can become the philosopher queens. So Plato is, especially with concern regarding women, is much more what you can say progressive as compared to Aristotle. And Plato never spoke about slavery because he never gave importance to slavery. All right. While Aristotle defended slavery because he is conservative thinker. The first line I written when I started with Aristotle was he's conservative and moderate. Jaisa hai, if it's not broken, do not fix it. That's the basic concept behind Aristotle. Okay, so his defense of slavery and his limitations placed on women does not give women right to participate. He does not give old people, all children citizenship. Shows that he is conservative as compared to Plato. Last, okay, this is the last part. There is a difference between authority of statesman and father. This is also a short note that is generally asked because Plato said that philosopher king's relation with the people of polis of Athens was like father to his children. All right. Aristotle doesn't agree with this. Aristotle says no. So what is it talking about? He says there is a difference between the authority of a statesman and a father. Father can be an authority figure only when he is ruling over or presiding over his family. What is his family? Wife, children, and slaves. Because we're talking about Aristotle. So slaves also become a part of the household. Okay. So he says, Aristotle says no. Plato is wrong here. Okay. He says no. The authority between the father and his children is very different from the authority of the rulers with the ruling class. So it is in criticism of Plato's philosopher king. Aristotle isn't criticizing Plato here, only correcting him. Okay, he's rectifying him. The above statement, Plato considers the state to be like a family where philosopher king is like a father enjoying, this is the word you have to use, absolute authority over his children. He expects the citizens of a state to make sacrifices like members of the family who sacrifice their choices for each other. See, again, Plato is very idealistic. So he wants this basic concept of obedience. Okay, he wants to see to it that people obey, and that's the reason why he's using this concept that listen, in family you obey the father, so same obedience you should have for your ruler, that is your philosopher king. Because why do you trust your father? You trust your father because you feel, yes, he knows better than me. The same acts, the same concept is basically what Plato applies for philosopher king, saying he knows better than you because he has reason. All right. So he says that you should obey him. Aristotle is not accepting this concept of obedience. Okay. Aristotle says there is a difference between authority of a father over his children, authority of master over his slaves, and authority of state over his citizens. Because there is difference. See, in politics, okay, there is going to be only one authority, the rulers and the ruled. This relationship is political. Okay, this rule is political. The relationship is political. The authority is political authority. But in a family, there are three kinds of relations. There is husband and wife, so husband dominates. There is father and children, father dominates. There is master and slave, where master dominates. So there are three kinds of authorities in a family. Instead, there is only one authority, that is political authority. So that's why Aristotle says there is a difference between authority of father over his family and authority of state over its citizens. All right. State is not just one family, it is family of families. And therefore, its authority is political in nature. All right. It is family of families. There's not just my family or your family or other families. All our families come together and are subjugated to the state. All right. So, more than father, more than master, who's more powerful? The ruling class is more powerful because they are ruling over family of families, and that authority is political. The authority is political in nature. Hence, laws governing the state shouldn't be dictate of just one person, philosopher, king, or father, etc., but as a result of deliberation amongst citizens of a polity. Okay, so here in family, what happens? Father says something, children have to listen because we are talking about patriarchal system of society. All right, so father says something, it is patriarchy. The children listen. Husband says something, wife has to listen. Master says something, slave has to listen. There is a relationship of obedience here. All right. He so what Plato says is that like you follow your father, you should follow the same principles and accept your philosopher king. But Aristotle differs. Aristotle says no, it's not just one family. All right, there's not just one family. State is a family of families, so there are going to be a lot of relationships. In that, there cannot be just different relationships. There's only one relationship, the ruler and the ruled, and this relationship is political, and the laws governing this relationship have to be a result of deliberations, discussions amongst the citizens of polity, not just one person, father or philosopher king dominating, but all the people should have equal say in the rules which are being formed, which are going to govern the ruling class as well as the ruled class. Therefore, state should strive for unity and diversity. Same. They're going to be diverse people. Bring them together, let's debate, let's discuss, and then make rules. And those rules are going to be abiding. So it won't be a father or a philosopher king dictating stuff. It will be by people, you, me, coming together, deliberating, and creating rules which are to be followed. That's why authority of father and authority of a state differs. One is in the private sphere, second is in the political sphere. So, what is the conclusion? Aristotle is pragmatic in comparison to Plato. So, it is said that Aristotle is the greatest critic of Plato, but he is actually rectifying the limitations of the Plato's ideas. With this, we have completed your Aristotle. Plato and Aristotle were very vast. All right. We'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we'll stop. Have you all understood? I know Plato was easier to understand, because his concepts were different. It was interesting. When it comes to Aristotle, the problem is there's so many classifications. So Aristotle will require a lot of mugging up and constant revision. So please concentrate on that and remember that. Anybody has any questions? I know 1.5 hours constantly talking to you. You all must be tired also. So shall I stop here if anybody doesn't have a question? Okay, Siddesh, only Shubhra Ranjan for Plato and Aristotle enough? Um, for both. Siddesh, what I'll tell you is Shubhra Ranjan is good. This thing also you can take, but I will suggest that you read Plato to Marx by Sushila Ramaswamy and Subrata Mukherjee, because they're not enough. See, the questions that are asked no are not going to be direct questions. They're going to test you as if I'm sorry, to see whether you've understood Plato or Aristotle or no. So only Shubhra Ranjan will not be enough, because it is a lot in Shub Shubhra Ranjan. It is, but that will not help you in answering. No, Siddesh, that is only for your knowledge. It is consolidation, but then you're collecting. But then to write answers, you need to understand the questions. And that understanding of the questions asked by UPSC will only come if you do reference work. So Shubhra Ranjan is excellent if you're going to attempt BA or MA exams, not for UPSC mains. So I will please request you that along with Shubhra Ranjan, please read through a history of political thought by Sushila Ramaswamy and Subrata Mukherjee. Just don't stick with Plato and Aristotle. You will understand, but you will not be able to crack mains questions. And we want to crack main examinations. So for that reason, do reference work, please. This is for everybody, okay? Please do reference work, especially for political thinkers. All right. Any other question? Any other questions? So shall we stop here? At least show me a thumbs up so then I'll stop. Don't worry. Okay. Okay. See you next week. Okay. Study hard. Okay. Siddesh, so this would, Siddesh, one second. So this would cover all thinkers. Siddesh, this meaning, I did not understand your word this here.
So actually, the notes, I mean, the Sushila Ramaswamy book would
Huh?
cover all the thinkers are only for Aristotle and Plato.
Acha, you're talking about Sushila Ramaswamy. That is a history of political thought, Plato to Marx, right?
Yes.
There are thinkers, only the thinkers that you have in your syllabus. So she's covering your Aristotle, Plato, Marx, Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, Machiavelli. Everybody is getting covered. Okay, Rousseau is required because we'll be studying theory of state. Okay, so you don't have to read Rousseau, but all the thinkers that are in your syllabus, all right, for your UPSC and are in this book have to be read. All right, so J.S. Mill is there, Karl Marx is there, Plato, Aristotle, Hobbes, Locke, Machiavelli. You have to study all those thinkers from Sushila Ramaswamy. Is it clear? Understood, Siddesh? Okay. So we'll stop here. I'll see you next week.